You've been asking, visualizing, hoping, aligning every thought with the desire, trying to believe just a little harder, but somehow it still feels like the thing you want is standing just a few inches beyond your reach. The money, the message, the miracle. You tell yourself to be patient, you try to stay high vibe, but inside there's that quiet ache, the gnawing question, why is it not here yet? And worse, what am I doing wrong? What if the problem isn't what you're doing? What if the energy you're sending out is actually the very thing that's keeping it from landing? Here's the truth most don't see. You are not manifesting from your conscious intention. You're manifesting from your subconscious frequency, from the energetic blueprint that lives beneath your words. You can say, I believe, but if your nervous system says, I'm not safe without it, the signal collapses. You can write affirmations every morning, but if your body is still holding the vibration of lack, it doesn't matter what your mouth says. The field reads your frequency, not your fantasy, and this is where most people get stuck. Not because they aren't trying hard enough, but because they're trying from a place of dissonance. The deeper self, the part that learned how the world works when you were still small and impressionable, is holding a different script. A script built on past evidence, on old survival patterns, on the moments when love was withheld unless you performed, when presence meant danger, when waiting taught you to anticipate disappointment. And so now, even as the conscious you says, I want it, the subconscious you says, I don't trust it, or worse, I don't deserve it. That internal war creates a fragmented signal, a mixed frequency, one part pulling the desire close, another part pushing it away. Like trying to tune into a radio station while someone else keeps switching the dial. The result? Static, interference, confusion in the quantum field, because reality doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to coherence. And coherence only happens when all of you, mind, body, heart, are broadcasting the same truth. When your nervous system feels safe to receive, when your identity matches the frequency of the thing you're asking for, not just in concept, but in embodiment. Because you don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. So the question isn't, how do I get it? The real question is, what part of me is afraid of it? What part of me believes I have to earn, prove, suffer, or struggle before I can receive? Feel that. Let it land. Because this is where everything begins to shift, not with force, but with frequency. You see, the subconscious isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you. That fear of receiving, that hesitation you can't explain, that tension in your chest when you imagine the thing finally arriving, that's not resistance because you're broken. That's protection because you were conditioned. The subconscious is like a loyal guard dog. It doesn't care what your vision board says. It only knows what feels familiar, what feels safe. And for many of us, safety has been wired into struggle, into effort, into self-sacrifice, into waiting, proving, pushing, and never quite arriving. So when you try to leap into a new frequency of abundance, love, freedom, the body goes on alert. Not because the thing is bad, but because it's unknown. And to a survival system, the unknown equals danger. This is why you can do all the right things. Meditate, journal, visualize, and still feel like something invisible is pulling the brakes. It is. It's the part of you still tethered to the old identity. The part that believes peace is only allowed after pain, that receiving without earning is selfish, that joy is suspicious, that ease must be temporary. You learned these beliefs not through logic, but through repetition, through emotion, through moments of intensity that imprinted you deeply. The subconscious absorbs what is repeated with feeling, and it holds on to it, even if it's outdated, even if it's untrue. This is why trying harder doesn't work, because trying implies force, and force always creates resistance. When you grip at a timeline, you squeeze the life out of it. When you chase a manifestation, you vibrate with the energy of not having it. It's like planting a seed and then digging it up every day to check if it's growing. The soil doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to trust, to stillness, to presence. In the quantum field, your signal isn't just your thoughts, it's your state, it's your breath, it's the way you walk into a room, the energy behind your smile, the truth behind your words. And this is where embodiment becomes everything, because when you become the version of you who already has the thing, not just in idea, but in essence, the field can't help but respond. Reality starts to match your new internal coherence. You don't have to chase it, you become a tuning fork, and the things you once begged for begin to orbit around you, magnetized by your frequency. But here's the nuance. You cannot fake embodiment. You can't trick the field with performance. You can't bypass the inner work with pretty words. The quantum doesn't respond to what you pretend to be. It responds to what you truly feel, what you embody in your nervous system, in your breath, in your baseline vibration. So if your body still flinches at ease, you have to meet that. If your heart still tightens when love gets close, you have to hold that. If your gut still clenches when money arrives, you have to soothe that. Because until you feel safe with what you're asking for, you will unconsciously repel it. That's not failure, that's wisdom. The body protecting itself from what it does not yet trust. So the work isn't to push past the blocks. The work is to become a sanctuary for your own desire, to make your body a place where abundance feels at home, to regulate the nervous system until receiving becomes your natural state, to reprogram the subconscious until ease feels familiar, until joy is no longer foreign, until presence doesn't feel like a threat. This is not more doing, this is deeper being, not from effort, from essence, not with control, but with coherence. And when that shift happens, not as a performance, but as a truth, your entire timeline begins to collapse. Things that used to take years arrive in weeks. Conversations change, doors open, you stop chasing and you start attracting. Not because you forced the field to respond, but because you finally became a clear enough signal to be heard. And that's where the magic begins. There was a moment I'll never forget, standing in front of my phone, staring at the screen, waiting for a message that never came. My chest tight, breath shallow, brain looping. Did I do something wrong? Are they losing interest? That spiral, you know it. It's not about the text, it's about the meaning we attach to the silence, about the way our subconscious interprets absence as rejection, or delay as danger. The body doesn't know the difference between emotional threat and physical threat. It reacts the same, shallow breath, clenched jaw, heart racing. In that state, we're no longer manifesting from alignment, we're manifesting from defense. And defense is a low-frequency broadcast. We forget that our energy field speaks louder than our words, that the universe reads the vibration beneath the action. And when we're locked in anticipation, gripping, waiting, questioning, we're no longer open. We're no longer a match to the thing we desire. We're tuned to the station of fear, of control, of what if it doesn't happen? And that signal, that vibration, creates distortion. It fragments the coherence of your field, and the field can only reflect what you're radiating. Let's bring it deeper. Imagine two people walk into a room. One walks in with ease, presence, grounded breath, not needing to be noticed. The other walks in with tension, seeking approval, craving validation. You don't need words to feel the difference. One is magnetic, the other is reaching. One is rooted in their own frequency. The other is reaching outside themselves, asking the world to regulate their worth. Now here's the question. Which one are you being when you're manifesting? Because when you want something so badly that your sense of self depends on it, you've already declared to the field that you are not yet it. You've created separation, and that separation is what delays the arrival. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because the timeline you're aligned with doesn't match the frequency of what you're asking for. Desire is not the issue. Longing is not the problem. The issue is identity, alignment, the coherence of who you believe you are in relation to what you desire. If you believe the thing is bigger than you, it becomes harder to receive. If you believe it completes you, you've made it conditional. If you believe it validates your worth, then you've handed your power away. The quantum field responds to wholeness, not perfection, but presence, not control, but coherence. So when we notice that internal grasping, the breathless reaching, and the ache of not yet, that is the signal to come back, to pause, to soften the grip, because gripping is a trauma response. Gripping is what we learned when love was inconsistent, when presence meant pain, when receiving came with conditions. So of course we try to control it now, of course we hold on tight. But the thing about manifestation is, it only flows into open hands. Embodiment is the bridge. Embodiment means you don't just think the new belief, you live it. You breathe like someone who is already supported. You speak like someone who trusts divine timing. You walk like someone who belongs in the rooms they once dreamed of. And most importantly, you soothe the part of you that still doesn't feel safe to receive, because that part doesn't need fixing. It needs witnessing. It needs safety. It needs you. This is not about ignoring your triggers or bypassing the pain. It's about reparenting your frequency, creating enough internal safety that your body stops bracing against what you say you want, enough regulation that your energy stops contradicting your words. And in that space, in that coherence, the signal clears. You become receptive, you become magnetic. You become the version of you that no longer asks, "Where is it?" but simply says, "I'm ready," and the field responds. There's something sacred that happens when we stop trying to fix the subconscious and instead start listening to it, not as an enemy, but as an ally. Because every belief you carry, even the ones that seem to block you, were once brilliant adaptations. They were protections, shields. The mind said, "If I expect less, I won't be disappointed." The body said, "If I stay small, I'll be safe." And those beliefs kept you alive, kept you functioning. But now, they're outdated software, and you're trying to run new frequencies on old coding. That's why manifestation can feel so confusing. You're putting out clarity on the surface, vision boards, affirmations, rituals, but under the surface, your energy still echoes with "not yet," "not enough," "not safe." And that echo distorts the transmission, not because you're wrong, but because you're divided. Think of a violin trying to play a beautiful, sustained note, but halfway through the bow stroke, another hand tugs at the string in a different direction. That interference doesn't just affect the sound, it breaks the resonance. That's what's happening inside when your conscious desire and subconscious belief are out of sync. The vibration collapses, not because you're not powerful, but because your signal isn't coherent. So how do you restore coherence? Not by trying to override the fear, but by integrating it, by meeting the subconscious with compassion, by updating the old beliefs with new felt experiences, because the subconscious doesn't change through logic, it changes through emotion, through embodiment, through repetition of safety, of worthiness, of love without conditions. It starts with noticing, gently, when your body contracts, when you feel urgency, when you hold your breath waiting for the outcome, and instead of pushing through it, you pause, you breathe. You ask, "What part of me doesn't feel safe right now?" And then you listen, not to fix it, but to witness it, because that witnessing is alchemy. The moment you create space for the fear, it softens. The moment you stop trying to outrun the doubt, the signal begins to harmonize. You start to become the version of you who can hold the frequency of your desire without needing to chase it, without needing to manage every detail, without gripping the how or the when. That is alignment. And from that place, things begin to move. Not because you pushed, but because the universe mirrors your coherence. That's when you get the call you weren't expecting. That's when the opportunity lands with perfect timing. That's when the relationship deepens without you needing to control it. Because now your field is clear, your signal is pure, and you've become a safe space for what you once feared. But this shift doesn't come from thinking different thoughts. It comes from becoming a different frequency. You don't need to fake it. You need to feel it to become it. The version of you who no longer doubts whether it's coming, because they already feel it in their bones, who no longer begs for signs, because they are the sign, who no longer rushes the process, because they trust the intelligence of timing. This is the art of vibrational congruence, where your nervous system, your identity, and your desires all move in harmony, where there's no tug-of-war between who you were and who you're becoming, just a steady unfolding, a gentle remembering, not from control, from coherence, not more effort, more presence. And in that presence, you realize the thing you've been trying to attract has been circling you the whole time, waiting for you to open, waiting for you to receive, waiting for you to remember that it's not outside of you, it's already encoded in your frequency. There's a moment in every journey where you realize it was never about getting the thing. It was always about becoming the version of you who could hold it, who could feel safe in the having, who could trust the receiving. Because receiving is an energetic skill, and for many of us it's unfamiliar, even threatening, especially if we were taught that love had to be earned, that abundance came after exhaustion, that rest required guilt, that joy must be followed by punishment. So here you are, standing on the edge of a new timeline, asking for more, calling in your next level, and yet something inside clenches. Not because you're not ready, but because your body still remembers a time when having more meant losing something, when getting close meant getting hurt, when standing out meant standing alone, and those memories, they don't just live in your mind, They live in your tissue, in your cells, in your breath. That's why the shift can't be conceptual. It has to be cellular. It has to happen in the pause. In the breath you almost didn't take, in the moment you choose to soften instead of strategize, in the choice to exhale when your nervous system wants to brace. Because every time you choose safety over speed, presence over performance, you rewrite the script. You tell the subconscious, we're not in danger anymore. You create space, and in that space, the energy reorganizes. This is what most people miss about quantum manifestation. It's not just about clarity, it's about coherence. It's not about the right technique, it's about the right signal, and the signal comes from your state, from your baseline vibration, from the way you treat yourself in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, when the doubt creeps in, when the ego wants to fix or force. That's when the real shift happens, not in the doing, in the being. Because manifestation doesn't begin when the thing arrives. It begins the moment you align with the version of you who already has it, who already feels it, who already lives in the frequency of its fulfillment, not pretending, not performing, embodying. And sometimes that version of you isn't louder. She's quieter, more peaceful, more trusting, more grounded. The one who doesn't need to hustle for worth, who doesn't need to manipulate the timing, who doesn't beg the universe, but whispers, I remember now. That's the signal the field responds to. That's the vibration that collapses timelines. So if you're waiting for a sign, for a breakthrough, for the universe to show you it's working, this is it. The fact that you're here, listening, leaning into your body, softening the grip, this is the shift. You are becoming the version of you who no longer lives in the gap, who no longer chases the thing, who no longer negotiates with the field. You are becoming the version who knows it's already done. Because in quantum terms, there is no delay, only alignment. The moment your frequency matches the thing, it begins its journey toward you. And the more you hold that state, not with force but with devotion, the faster the bridge collapses. That's why some things take years, and others arrive in days. It's not about deserving, it's about coherence. And the most powerful frequency is safety. When you feel safe to receive, when you no longer fear the beauty, the intimacy, the abundance, when your body no longer braces against the light, the field opens, the pathway clears, the quantum responds, not because you pushed, but because you remembered. You remembered who you are, you remembered what you're made of, you remembered that the power is not outside of you. It's always been here, in the way you breathe, in the way you choose, in the way you let life in. Hand now until you're ready to let it in. And letting it in, that's where the true transformation begins. Not the dramatic, flashy kind we chase with our minds, but the subtle, sacred shift that happens in your energy when you finally stop waiting to be worthy. When you stop outsourcing your power to the next outcome, the next message, the next external cue that says, now you can feel good. You realize that cue will never come, not because it doesn't exist, but because it was never supposed to lead you. You were meant to lead it. You were meant to go first, to feel the frequency before the form, to radiate before the reward, to embody before the evidence. But I know it's hard. I know there are days when you feel like you've done everything right and still nothing moves. I know the ache of doing the inner work, holding the vision, staying the course, and yet waking up to the same silence, the same numbers, the same space in your bed. That's the moment your nervous system starts to rebel. It says, see, nothing's changing. And your old survival wiring kicks in. Brace, force, withdraw, shrink. But hear this with your whole being. That moment, right there, that's your portal. Because when you choose to stay open in the absence, when you choose to feel worthy without proof, when you decide to keep your field clear even in the face of nothing happening, you send a new signal, a revolutionary signal, one that says, I am no longer waiting to be chosen. I've already chosen myself. That signal doesn't just ripple through the quantum, it reprograms your subconscious. It tells your inner world a new story, one where love isn't delayed, abundance isn't earned, and joy is your baseline, not your reward. And slowly, your external begins to catch up, because the universe doesn't operate on effort. It operates on essence. Not what you do, but who you are while you're doing it. And when your essence shifts, when you start to feel the joy in the moment before the manifestation, you collapse time. You remove resistance. You become a vibrational match to the life you've been praying for. Not because you've begged hard enough, but because you've become the frequency. You are the sign. You are the shift. You are the portal. But let's bring it all the way home. Because I don't want you to just understand this. I want you to feel it. In your gut, in your spine, in your breath. Take a moment. Breathe deeply. Feel into the version of you who's already receiving. Not because the thing has arrived, but because your nervous system has. Feel how different that version walks, speaks, chooses. Feel the spaciousness, the calm, the absence of urgency. That's coherence. That's alignment. Now, imagine living from there. Imagine making decisions not from pressure but from presence. Speaking not to convince but to express. Moving not to chase but to channel. This is the new paradigm of manifestation. Not bypass, not effort, but embodiment. And in that embodiment, everything changes. You stop asking when will it come and start living as if it's already here. You stop looking for signs because you become so tuned in that the whole world becomes a mirror of your inner frequency, a reflection of the safety, the wholeness, the radiance you've finally allowed yourself to feel without needing a reason. This is where we reclaim the power we never truly lost. This is where manifestation becomes less about calling something in and more about clearing what kept it out. You don't have to become someone else. You just have to come home to the self beneath the survival, the self that never doubted, the self that already knows, the self that already knows. And that's the one the universe responds to. Not the mask, not the performance, but the quiet anchored self underneath it all, the one who remembers how to receive without tension, how to trust without proof, how to rest without guilt. That self has been waiting patiently beneath the noise of the mind, beneath the conditioning of urgency, beneath the tightness of control. She knows that control was never the source of safety. It was only ever a substitute, a placeholder, a trembling attempt to predict a reality that always moves in waves, not lines. So when you release control, you're not becoming passive, you're becoming powerful. Because the most magnetic beings don't try to manipulate the outcome. They embody the outcome. They let the energy lead. They trust the pull. They don't second-guess the flow. They align their state and then surrender the strategy. And surrender isn't giving up. It's giving in to the deeper rhythm that's already carrying you. The rhythm that doesn't respond to deadlines, to panic, to pressure, but to presence. The more you regulate your nervous system, the more you attune to that rhythm. You stop looking for signs and start feeling them in your body. You stop trying to get answers and start becoming the answer. You stop waiting and start vibrating at the frequency of already whole, already worthy, already aligned. And that changes everything. Because in the quantum, it's not about time. It's about resonance. You don't manifest faster by pushing harder. You manifest faster by collapsing the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. And that gap isn't closed through hustle. It's closed through healing, through coherence, through becoming energetically undivided. So ask yourself now, what am I still waiting for permission to feel? What future state have I placed on the other side of a condition? Joy after success, relaxation after the money comes, love after I'm chosen. Flip it. Feel the joy first, the ease now, the love within. Not to manipulate the field, but because that's who you truly are when you're not performing your pain. Because that's the final veil. We keep identifying with the wound, thinking it's our personality. We say, I'm anxious, I'm not good with money, I always attract the wrong people, but those are not your truths. They're frequencies you've been rehearsing, embodiments of an old identity that doesn't match the timeline you're stepping into. And timelines don't shift when your circumstances change. They shift when your embodiment does. When you start showing up as the version of you who no longer identifies with the wound, who no longer needs the struggle to feel real, who no longer waits for validation to feel valuable, that's when the field rearranges. That's when you wake up and realize the external didn't create the shift. You did, not by changing the mirror, but by changing the signal you send to the mirror. Because reality doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you are, to what you believe you're safe to hold, to what your nervous system is calibrated to receive. So if you want to unlock the next level of your life, don't look outward. Don't ask, what do I need to do? Ask instead, what do I need to become safe enough to receive? And then breathe into that question. Let it become your practice. Let it guide your embodiment. Let it reshape your frequency, not with pressure, with presence, because presence, that's the portal. It always has been. In presence, there's no more performing, no more rehearsing the future or replaying the past. There's only the hum of now, where the nervous system unwinds, the breath deepens, and the veil between thought and reality begins to dissolve. In presence, you remember. You remember that the gap was never real, that your manifestations weren't lost, just circling, waiting for you to become available, waiting for you to anchor into the signal of already, of wholeness, of inner congruence. And in that congruence, things begin to shift in ways that don't make linear sense. You stop needing signs and start becoming them. You walk into rooms and feel doors open energetically before you even speak. You begin to notice time bending around your alignment, the call coming right as you exhale, the opportunity landing without effort, the person showing up just as you release the grip. It looks like magic to the outside world, but to you, it feels like truth, because it's no longer surprising, it's expected, not from entitlement, but from embodiment. You've become the version of you who knows how this field works, who doesn't chase but magnetizes, who doesn't ask, is it working? Because you can feel it working in your bones, in your breath, in the stillness inside your chest. That stillness isn't passivity, it's power. It's the signal of a regulated nervous system, attuned to trust, radiating a clear vibration into the field, and the field, like the mirror it is, can't help but reflect it back. This is the paradox most miss. The less you need it, the faster it comes. Not because need is wrong, but because need is a frequency, and it tells the field, I don't yet have it, I don't yet trust it, I'm not yet it. And the field listens. It always listens. So when you feel the pull to grip, to chase, to ask again, pause, come back, soften. Ask instead, can I feel the frequency before the form? Can I trust the intelligence that moves the stars and beats my heart? To also orchestrate the timing of my life, because it's not your job to manage the how. It's your job to become the frequency, to build a body that feels safe with the thing you're calling in, to regulate until receiving becomes second nature, until joy no longer feels like a threat, until love no longer needs to be earned. That's how you rewrite the subconscious. That's how you change your life from the inside out. Not through effort, through energy. You become a vibrational match for the reality you were born to live. You collapse the delay. You stop reaching and start receiving, and everything begins to move, not chaotically but harmonically, with rhythm, with grace. So here you are, no longer asking, when will it come, but breathing into, it's already on its way, no longer bargaining with the universe, but dancing with it, no longer trying to prove your worth, but embodying it. And in that embodiment, you become the answer you were waiting for. You become the coherence that calls it all in, not with control, but with clarity, not by doing more, by being more true. You are the signal, and now the field is listening.